Welcome to Let's Play the Blue Marlin from Hot B for NES. This is one of the few fishing games on the NES. Another popular one also published by Hot B was the Black Bass. A lot of the mechanics are similar, but a lot of them are different also in this game, and I preferred then in the 90s as I prefer now in the 2010s. The Blue Marlin to the Black Bass, because it's a lot deeper game. There's some interesting mechanics. There's a lot going on in this game that the player can take advantage of, and there's just a lot of things to see. And even playing it now, all these years later, I'm still seeing new things and finding new things in this game. We're going to play a series of tournaments. Each day is a tournament. They're kind of like levels, although they all play the same. They're just different layouts and different challenge levels. We're going to start here putting in our name. There's a very complex password system in this game for resuming. There wasn't a save battery in this. You get these really, really long, I don't know, 32 character passwords. So we'll pop in our name, Let's Play. There's a lot to talk about in this game. We've got clear weather in Florida on the first day. The next 3 days are in Hawaii. In each day, you have a choice of 3 different locations. In this one, we've got Palm Beach is where we're going to start. We'll visit each location. There's three in each day, and there's 3 sets of music. There's the center place's music, the place to the left music, and the place to the right's music. See, I'm adjusting my settings here, getting my line strength, my line length, my lure, my lure depth. All of those things are variables that play a factor. This game has a very, very interesting experience and leveling system that is kind of hidden from the player. There are some hints to how it works in the manual, but the manual is translated not very poorly. Ooh, there's also a lot of random things like your fish getting eaten by a shark, which can happen. It's another thing that makes this game so interesting and so deep, is that there's all these random events, random choices sometimes you have to make while fighting fish. So we'll talk about the fish fighting screen. Right now we're just in the boat screen where you're trying to get fish on the line. So the experience system, you can gain experience in muscle power, in physical strength, and then also skill. If you use lighter line, as I switched to the 90-pound line, the 90-pound test line, you gain more experience for catching fish. More experience if you can get them in on the lighter line. So I'm pulling in right now some smaller fish that don't count for the tournament. This one is a Dorado. The Dorado fish also goes by the name of dolphin or dolphin fish, not to be confused with the mammal. And when we buy the meat of those fish to eat, generally it's called mahi-mahi. So if you've heard Dorado dolphin or mahi-mahi, that's all that same fish. And they're worthless for the tournament, but they are worth experience. There's a dude dancing on the beach. So I'm going to catch those fish to try to build my levels up just a little bit before I start going after billfish. What are billfish? In this game, this game calls them marlins, generally, and that's a little bit easier word, I guess, to spit off. But to win each day's tournament, you have to have caught the largest fish of the billfish family. And in this game, that is blue marlin, black marlin, striped marlin, swordfish, and sailfish. So if you can catch the biggest fish of those 5 on each day, you will win that day and you'll go on to the next day. If you don't catch the biggest fish of that category, you still keep all of your levels, but you have to play that day's tournament over. So you can build yourself up a little bit if you're just persistent with this game. You can build up your levels and just power through. You can grind through this game if you want, and it's quite fun. So I'm building up levels here. The fight screen, the first thing that you'll notice is the clinking sound of the line. That's a rather unfortunate part of this game, and a lot of fishing games, is that they have to communicate to you that your line is getting near breaking strength. So you get kind of 2 levels of line hazard. The first one is the slower clinky sound, and then when that doubles in speed, then you know your line is really close. That's like level 2 hazard level, and that's when your line can break. Your line is not going to break while you're in the level 2, the level 1 category. There's a barracuda. That's another kind of fish you can catch from those schools. And so, for that reason, just to save some time, I often fight fish just with that level 1 hazard going all the time. You also see my reel in the middle at the beginning of each fight. That lever on the right side of the reel goes down to the bottom. I don't move it throughout the fight. That's your drag. That controls the speed of line that fish can pull out when you're not reeling. So when that drag is all the way down, fish can't pull line out as quickly. When the drag's up, they can pull line out more quickly. That tires fish out more to have them pulling line out more quickly, but it means you have to reel more line back in. And I just got to level up on my body strength from using the lighter line to catch some of these smaller fish. So we're back into exploration mode. You drive the boat around. I'm going to go back to the pier where I started, and we're going to switch points. We're going to go from Palm Beach over to Cape Canaveral, which apparently you can just switch between these cities in Florida with no no game time passing, and no real time either. The tournaments go from 6 a.m. game time to 4 p.m. game time, and you can see they go a lot faster. It's already 6:57 a.m. in this game. We started at 6. So I have until 4 o'clock p.m. game time to catch something, but I can quit early if I catch a fish that I think will be the winner of that day's tournament. And generally on day 1, it's about a 500-pound marlin or billfish will be the winner of that day's tournament. But you can stay out longer and build your levels up if you want. On the right side of the fight screen, you can see the fish with the line in its mouth, and the line is moving, and that shows you how well the fish is hooked. When the line is steady still, that means the fish is hooked very deeply and very solidly. When it's moving a little bit, it means the hook is becoming dislodged, and when it's moving very fast, that means that you're right on the edge. It's kind of like hazard level 0, 1, and 2 on your line. You can affect that by not pulling back on the fish. You can see my fisher character will pull back on the rod and then reel. Pull back and then reel. The pulling back and reeling helps you get line in, helps you get started reeling. And it's something that just you have to get a feel for, but that causes the hook to become dislodged. Now when you lay off on the pulling back, the hook can work itself back in. Same thing with fish's tiredness level. Sometimes you'll see 1 or 2 rings of sweat. There's a nice Dorado, but I'm not going to keep them because they're not worth anything for the tournament. You can keep them and get an official weight on them, but they take up a space in your hold. So I think I'm ready to take on a billfish, so I'm going to go up to 160 pounds on the line, just so that I can get one in a little bit easier. To raise a billfish, they're never going to be one of the fish that's in a school. Billfish will never be there. They always come up behind a school or behind a whale. Believe it or not, there's whales in this game that you can't catch them. Or behind some seagulls. So I'm going to put my lure behind this school and try to raise a billfish. And you'll see them pop up. There's actually one down in the right corner that's following another school. But I raised a billfish right there. And now I've got this one, but he's very difficult to reel. You can see I'm working really hard. He jumped and pulled out a bunch of line. I'm working really hard just to keep him even. I cut out some time here. It was about a 10-minute fight. And finally I gave up on him because my character's strength was not enough to pull him in. I'm going to skip some more exploration time here. And we'll do this a little bit more in the run today, just to make this Let's Play video a little bit easier to watch. I've cut out quite a bit of that long fight from that fish, in which nothing exciting really happened. I got the fish to within about 50 feet, but then my vitality, the green lines there, just ran completely down, and I had no strength left, so I had to let the fish run out another couple hundred feet before I could even get the reel turning again, and then I knew that I wouldn't have a chance because the fish was not going to let me get him in. Also, just when I have long exploration times, I've cut some of those out. to make it a little bit easier. So I'm going to pull this fish in. He's got the sweat ring around him. When you're fighting the billfish, you also get a number of decision-making events. Usually don't get those fighting the school fish, the Dorado and the Barracuda. So you have to make a decision, and it's totally random as to what the right decision is. Sometimes the decision is to do one thing, sometimes it's to do the other, sometimes it's to do nothing. And if you get a decision correct as to whatever the game decides, you get some kind of a bonus. Usually the fish is tired or you gain some line. If you make the wrong decision, you get a penalty. And sometimes that means losing the fish almost instantly, as we'll see as we continue on here. So now I'm moving over to Miami. That was a very frustrating fight with that other fish. We didn't see all of it, but that was quite disheartening. So you can see we've got the third kind of music here. Your fighting music, your fish fighting music, you've got the schooling fish fighting music, you have the billfish fighting music, and then there's also a shark fighting music. And the shark music is by far the best music in the game. But unfortunately, the sharks are worth 0 experience. They're also very large, so it takes a long time to bring them in. And they don't help your statistics at all. In addition to that, they can bite your line off. They can just sever your line, so you can't always keep them on the line long enough to hear that whole theme. So here I raised a billfish. Now we've got a nice fight. A little stronger. This fish is a little bit more in my territory, so he jumps and pulls a bunch of line out, and they will do that. Sometimes they'll have a event jump that'll be decision-making time, where you'll leave this scene and you'll go into a little cut screen. And your fishing buddy, the guy who's driving your boat and tells you, hey, let's play, I think I feel a bite, or if you run into something, he'll say, hey, stop running into rocks and stop running into buildings. Because if you do run into too many things, your boat has to go back in for repairs and you lose some tournament time. But I've never found in this game, once I learned the mechanics of the game, I've never really needed whole days of the tournament before I catch a fish. That's going to be the tournament winner, the day's winner. So this one, he's got 1 ring of sweat, but the hook is dangerously close to coming out, so I have to wait sometimes to let that hook get back in a little bit. And it's a feel thing to know about how far you are into those hazard levels. I assume that the game has a lot of numeric metrics that are going all the time. That will, that eventually when it gets to 0 or 100 or 255 maybe in this game. I've almost got him in, but when they get inside of about 20 feet, Marlin will often do this. They'll try to cut the line on the propeller. So there was a decision screen. If I had made the wrong choice, I probably would have lost the fish. If I had chosen the other one, it would say, your line has been severely damaged. There we go, 500 pounds, and I get a level up. And that will probably be my tournament winner, but I'm going to stay out a little bit longer to try to level up myself a little bit more for the next day's tournament. Once you get your levels up to AA in everything, here's the shark. Let's listen to the music. And you see we lost the shark. We didn't even get to hear the coolest part of the music. So I may put a link to get a chance to listen to that shark music, because that's my favorite in this game. Here's a whale. And you can raise a billfish behind a whale if you are lucky and you have the right lure. Now the conditions again come into this. There's a sun down there in the corner. And according to the manual, and you can't always trust manuals with this, because often programmers didn't execute things right, or people in the manual translated things incorrectly. But when you are going into the sun, apparently it blinds the fish and decreases the chances of a strike. And see the sun moved. As you go through the day, the sun goes to different parts of the sky. So apparently it's harder to hook fish when you are going into the sun than when the sun is at your back. And I made the mistake there. I accidentally motored over top of that whale. And if you motor through a school, through the middle of a school, or over top of a whale, you'll lose them. They'll sink. Now here I'm just going to try to hook one of these fish. A fish we haven't seen yet today is a tuna. And the tuna are tricky because they come up behind a school like a billfish, but when you hook them, they look like this. They don't have that billfish sail coming out of the water. So you pull them in. They're worth experience, and they're usually big, but they are not worth anything for the tournament. So you'll see sometimes when I am pulling these fish in, I'm gonna go back to a little bit lighter line, so I can gain a little bit more experience from these fish that I do catch. There we go. There's a nice one. And I get one of the lucky rolls. It says, go for it, the fish is very exhausted. So this I could tell was a big fish right away when my character even had a hard time pulling back. If your character has a hard time even leaning back, you know that it's quite a large fish. So to get that bonus, go for it, the fish is randomly exhausted. There we go, an 800-pound black marlin. When you get those, you got to take advantage of them. Now sometimes the fish is so big and you're so underpowered that even then you can't get them in. But generally, you're okay. When that happens, you can just kind of yank them in. Now that school, I raised a billfish behind them, but the school hit the side and scattered, and so did the billfish, the marlin, before I had a chance to hook it. But this one, we're going to hook and bring them in. Some of the schools will scatter when they hit a boundary, some will bounce. I used to call them bouncy schools when I was a kid, and those are the nice ones because you don't have to drive around the screen in your slow boat hunting for schools of fish. You can just follow one and keep changing your bait until you raise a billfish. Now the manual, I might do some reading from the manual in future videos. We're getting close to the end on this one. But the manual makes it really tricky in that, here's another trying to cut the propeller as we get inside. And pulling up the rod was the right choice. I probably would have lost him had I wound the reel or done nothing. But the manual doesn't actually tell you to put your bait behind a school of fish to raise a billfish. Sometimes they will randomly come up behind a school, and you'll see that, and then you can put it behind them. And that's what the manual tells you to do. Drive around and watch for a school that already has a billfish behind it. That happens fairly rarely in this game. So I spent a lot of time frustrated driving around looking for fish until I think one day randomly, after playing this game, and I never owned it, I just rented it repeatedly. I drove past a school of fish with my lure and I saw that it popped up. So I think that was something that they meant to write into the manual, but it just didn't get translated correctly. So here I've got the day's winner, so I'm going to come in, weigh my fish up, and then go to the results. So you can weigh any other fish you catch, sharks or dorados or barracudas. It doesn't have a weigh screen like this. Now look at the guy with the hat there is looking to his left. On the bigger fish, he looks to his right. So he's still looking to his left. This was the about 500-pounder. And the fish there always looks like a blue marlin, no matter what species it is. But you see, it's bigger on this one. I have the next category larger of fish, and the guy in the cap is looking to his right. And I get different music and I get confetti. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the winner. It just means that it was a higher up in that category. So now we're going to go to the results and see if I won. That character is the player. That is Let's Play standing there giving the peace sign like all American fishermen do. I won today, and next time we'll take on the next day.